Okay, today I want to tie the orange quill, well-known fly, popularised by Mr. Skuse, who fished the Itchen, the chalk stream. He didn't invent the fly, but he found by experiment that the fly was very good when olives were about on the water. It's a fly for the evening rise, because the olives tend to hatch evening time, and especially from about June onwards. We have several olives in our river, and I tie a couple of them, but this Mr. Skuse found that the orange quill did very well when the blue-winged olive was on the water. No one really knows why, but the blue-winged olive, it's easy to recognise because it's the only olive with 3 tails. Most upright flies have got 2 tails. The mayfly has 3, but if you see an olive, it's quite a robust fly, not as big as a mayfly, and if it's got 3 tails, it's the blue-winged olive. Now, it likes well aerated water and can usually be found downstream of a sort of fast, stony run. The dipping bridge is ideal because the stony water running into it on the left bank as you're looking downstream. You cast up under the arches, and sometimes the natural fly comes down. You wouldn't think to use an orange coloured fly like this. Okay, now I just want to tell you a little bit about it. The body is a quill. It's a stripped quill. You see these big hackles here that we use for suing flies. As we use them up and put the beard on, say the fly like this, the beard hackle, we're left with the bare quill. Don't throw it away. We can use it for this fly, and this is what I'm going to use. You'll see me use this in a moment or two. Now, the original tie-in called for dyed condor herl. Very difficult to get these days. This is condor. I've got it, and you can see I've dyed this orange, and you would take one of these quills, and there's one there, an orangey sort of quill that you would use to tie the fly. This is a natural condor, and this is the dyed condor. It's no point in me telling you to use condor. You won't get it. Okay, here we go. Now, I've already waxed the silk, and I'm going to put a foundation on. Now, the original tie-in recommends Hackle point wings, or starling wings, actually. Now, I don't like the starling wings. They're not strong enough, and I've found over the years that mallard wings, slips from a mallard feather like this, from mallard primaries, are the best wings to use. I use them on, if I'm going to use natural wings like this, this is what I use. So I'm going to put these on now. You get the position. It's about 1/3 up the hook shank, somewhere about there. I'm doing a pinch and loop, and I'm going to pull down. If I'm doing it right, these roots should come up in the air like that. When they're like that, give 1 or 2 in the front, not many, to secure it, and then I take my silk around the back. And you will see as we tie this fly that these wings are quite robust for a feather wing slips. Okay, now the wings are cut from the mallard feathers. When I buy the whole wing, as I've said, maybe you've seen it somewhere, introduction, and I take off the slips like that. You can see where I've cut the little bits off as I've used them up. So I've got a pair there, and I keep them paired up so that I don't have to search for a left and a right. Okay, now I've got the wing like that. These stubs here, I'm going to, because I want to keep the front in front of the wing fairly clear base to take the hackle, if I build up a big head, the hackle will be all distorted. So I'm going to take these two around the back, behind the wing, like this, bring the wing forward, and I tie them down behind the wing, like that. I hope you can see that. And there I will be positioning the wing at the end of the fly, so I just want you to see how I've done that. Now when I got them there and tied them down, I'm going to dip off the stubs and the best way I can. Sometimes you can go down in between the wings, but it just depends how they fall. So I'm just going to do this, nip them out like this. It doesn't matter, I don't want them to be cut evenly because I'm going to put a foundation on in a moment. I can see one loose one there which I'll try to remove. Now you see how that is, and now I'm going to tie down these stubs a bit better to make a nice base for the body. So I'm sort of doing touch and turns, and you can see how I've evened out those stubs to give a sort of carrot shaped body. And I'm leaving the front of in front of the wings fairly clear to take the hackle when I come to put that on. Now the next item is the tail. Tail from a big orange hackle like this. Take out a few fibres, we don't want too many. I'm drawing them down to get the tips somewhere straight, nip it off, and I tie these on. And I'll sort of try to tie these on the right length, somewhere my side. The silk will take it over a bit, and they'll end up in the middle. A bit too long for me, so I'm going to go there. Getting your proportions is important. These flies have longish tails. I'm going to put a wind underneath it, pick up the hackles, get a wind underneath it like that, and that gives the tail a better appearance. Okay, now this side I've got the stubs and the roots of the tail feathers, so I'm going to cut these out now. Now with starling wings, you'd be splitting and God knows what, and the starling wings certainly start splitting when you fish it. Now that'll lie down nicely in a moment or two. Now the dyed hackle stalk, which you saw on the original fly, can you see it there? And this is what I'm going to put on now, and it's simply a big hackle from one of these big capes that I've been using up, and I stripped, and I keep the hackle stalks. I leave a little touch just so that I can see the colour, which I'll be nipping off now. And I just tie this in, narrow end first, just like this. And I will take it up now to behind the wings. I'll take my silk up to behind the wings, like this. I don't worry too much about these wings at the moment because, as I said, I will be positioning them shortly. But just while I'm there, I'm going to park my silk at the front to give me more room to tie this hackle stalk. I try to do it in touch and turns, and forgive me if my fingers get in the way. It doesn't matter too much if there's a little gap, because it gives the impression of segmentation, but I try to do it in touch and turns. The hackle stalk makes quite a nice body. It floats very well, It does not absorb water. You've all heard the phrase as light as a feather. Well, this is a feather that's been stripped. So you will see that, see the wing is getting a little bit, catching it a bit there. Can you see what I'm doing there? I'm just getting up here. Hope it's coming out okay your side. Winding it up. If you get a hackle stalk which is a bit stiff and prone to break, very often when you get this far up they will split. Damp it first in some water. Do you see me take my silk back? And now I'm going to secure the butt of this hackle. Incidentally, the silk I'm using, as you can see, is a pale orange, and the hook for this fly, believe it or not, it's an emerger hook. I'm sealing that down. It's a Camazan B400, size 12. I normally tie it on a 14. I'm doing a 12 to hoping it's coming out better on this little demonstration. There's the body on. And I'm going to secure it pretty well. What I'm going to do now is give it a coat of varnish, which is not really necessary, but I think it looks better. The blue-winged olive, when it's been on the water for a little while, it turns a sort of orangey colour, and sometimes a maroon colour, being described as a blood red colour. For an olive, it doesn't sound right, but it does. And Mr. Skews found by accident that the orange quill worked very well. Okay, now the next item really is the hackle, the main hackle. And the hackle is, it's a sort of fox brown, a reddish brown hackle. I use this darkish one as the season goes on. It's from a saddle cape. Here they are, probably not coming out very clear on the camera. I use this, and I use a lighter one early in the season, a lighter hackle. You've seen me putting this on as a figure of 8, one over that way, one over this way, and it keeps the hackle at 90 degrees. One there, one there. Now again, I'm going to take my silk behind the wings again, up under and behind the wing, because I want to tie down that stalk. That to me is important because it stops the hackle pulling out as I wind it. Not everyone does it, and I wouldn't say if you know, it's an absolute must. Now you can see that little stalk there, I hope. See it there? I'm going to tilt this a little so that I can see it better, so that I can cut it out. That's that cut out. Right, now my silk is parked at the front, and I'm going to wind the hackle, and I'm going to go behind the wings as well as in front. So here we go. You can use a hackle pliers if you want to, with a nice long hackle like this, which is a good quality hackle. I don't bother with it. I do use hackle pliers and I like them, but with a long hackle like this, and I'm a bit mindful of the camera lens, I don't want to hit that. Right, I've wound the hackle and I've secured it with 2 winds. I'm now going to nip it out and make it properly secure. Okay, now then I'm going to fix it good and proper. Push them back a little bit like this with my cotton bud tool that I've cut off and smoothed down a bit. Push them back a bit like that, And I'm going to put on a half hitch just to expose the head, easier for me to tie the head off. You see how that sort of pushed the hackles back and has exposed the head. Half hitch helps a bit. It's not as good as a whip finish. Now I'm going to secure everything down. You'll see that hackle stalk, that tip of the hackle where it finished up, has now been locked in well with the windings I'm doing now. Get back here, and I'm going to put on my usual whip finish. I'm not suggesting you do this. I recommend a whip finish tool, which is very versatile. That was 2, that's 3. 3's enough on a dry fly like this. And there is already a half hitch on there, as you know. Right, I draw it up, secure it a bit like that. Just give it a pull. You see the fly flexing? That tells me to tighten it. Now I open my scissors to a gape and I gently push, and that's cut the silk. Now, let me just have a look at it. Now I did say to you, don't worry about the wings because I'm going to position them shortly, but well, I'll do that straight away before I varnish the head. I just get a bluntish needle like this, and I get down and I bring these roots down. Now you will see how robust these are for wing slips. I bend them down like that, and I'm going to put a blob of varnish down in the center before I fix them, and that does help to hold them. So I've got a slightly thicker varnish here, which I just put there, just like that. This is nail varnish. It's called top coat. Now that before it sets, I position the wings where I think they should be, sort of upright and like that. I'll tilt the fly so that you can see them. I'll give it a full rotation. Can you see that? All that's left now is to varnish the head. I go back to my nice thin varnish. Again, nail varnish, Sally Hansen's, but I've got several varnishes. I like Vineyards, and I'm now going to do the head. So I get my dubbing needle, small fly, so I lift some off the brush like this, and I just roll it around the head. Just to roll around like that. I often go back to my flies the next day, well 24 hours later anyway, and put some more varnish on, but it's not really necessary. Okay, that's the completed fly. Very good dry fly. Doesn't only work on chalk streams, it works everywhere where there are olives. Okay, thank you for watching that. Hope you picked up a few tips.